Alright, here's a 1,000-mile review of my 2023 Kawasaki KLX300. I've got right at 1,041 miles on here, and I really like this motorcycle, and I thought, hey, here's an opportunity for me to kind of turning this over to go through some pros and cons of this motorcycle and some things I did to it, some things I like. And I'll just go front to back. The tires that come on this thing, I think, are the Dunlop 605s. Dunlop 605s are the tires that come with this. And a lot of people dog on them because they're not as knobby as like a 606, which is their more 80-20, dirt street. This is more of a 50-50 tire. And for the first set of tires to come on a motorcycle, you're just getting used to it. You're not maybe doing any hardcore off-roading. You're riding around town, you're riding up and down the street to get used to it, learning your motorcycle, maybe doing some backcountry roads, some gravel roads. These are excellent tires. I really like them. Now, when I get a new set of tires, I'll probably go with the D606s or the Tusk version of those. They're about half the price, or maybe 3/4 the price, and everybody gives them really good reviews. And that's something it's kind of a theme with this bike. I did not intend for this to turn into basically the Tusk bike, but I've tried Tusk accessories, and I've tried stuff from other manufacturers, and there's some things that I like, but by and large, when it comes to a lot of the stuff that Tusk offers, I find that theirs performs as well or better at a lower price. And I've sent stuff back because it was higher, it was stuff that was regarded as high quality, and then you get it and hardware's out of specification, there's an issue with it mounting, fitment, something like that. But with the Tusk stuff, it just seems to work, and it does it at a reasonable price. Going back to the front here, another thing I've done is I've added a LED light bulb. It comes with a halogen light bulb. The halogen light bulb was fine, but it was kind of dim, riding in the dark. I just wanted something a little bit better. It's not knock your socks off better, but it's significantly better, and it makes riding at night a little bit more confidence inspiring. At least you don't feel so exposed. This windshield here is from T-Rex Racing. Really good stuff out of Dallas, Texas. I found it to be very high quality, very rigid, strong, thick material. Very good. I'd go with that again. If I was doing it again, that was my first mod, and that'd be my first mod again. Coming here, I guess, to the handguards next are the Tusk Deflect MX Shield. And this is one of the Tusk things that I kind of had an issue with. I'm not really, for this bike, I'm not such a fan of it. And it really doesn't have anything to do with the product. It just has to do with what this bike is made for. This is a dual sport. It's not a motocross bike. And so there's some things on here that you would find on a more road-oriented bike that you wouldn't find on a motocross bike. For example, this master cylinder here with the hose coming out the front, most of the motocross type bikes that I've seen, they have the port coming out here, and as you can see here, there's not enough bend in this handguard, and so it touches or interferes with the master cylinder. So that means I have to rotate the whole master cylinder brake lever assembly forward slightly farther than I want to, and that's just not ideal. So I've got to figure out a solution for that. Another thing, the mounts, the handlebar clamps that came with this are really big and bulky, and there wasn't really any way to mount them so that they were square. They would mount up square. There was offset, against this post or against this bar, and then it was just really hard to get them mounted and not get them in a bind without the handguard being pointed way up or pointed way down. I just didn't like them. And so to solve that issue, I found these Cyclone handguard clamps, or handlebar clamps, and you can see that they basically just replace the handlebar clamps, and then they give you a mounting point for your handguards. And so I had to cut about 1.5 centimeters off of these Tusk aluminum handlebars that I put on here, off of both sides, and that brought those in just enough that they would mount. Another thing that's kind of an issue with this particular handguard is this isn't a very smooth bend right here. See, it's kind of angular, straight here, bend, straight here. And what that does is, as my clutch lever or my brake lever, either one, is coming in, you know, where it's flat there, it just kind of interrupts the arc. And so that means I have to move my perch in further than I want to for it to make clearance. Now, Tusk does have a solution for these. I was thinking about going with another brand, but you know, even just replacing these handguards is still cheaper. And these are good, rugged handguards. Like if it was a smaller bike or, you know, a motocross bike or something like that, these would be perfect. I just picked the wrong product for my motorcycle. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the Tusk D-Flex Pro, I think they are. And what that does is in the front, see how that profile really doesn't follow the profile on the handlebar? In the front, on the D-Flex Pro, they come up at more of an angle like that and then come straight over. And then they also have more of a fluid curve, so that it won't interfere so much with my, and then it flattens out. And then it has more of a fluid curve here, so that it won't interfere with my brake and clutch lever. So that means I'll be able to move my perches back out to where I want them to be. And in the front here, you can see if I just have a little bit more upward sweep there. Oh, and they also come out further, it looks like. But if I just had a little bit more upward sweep right there, you know, then I'd be able to move my master cylinder, rotate it back into my riding position where I'm a little bit more comfortable. I don't ride with them straight and flat. I point them down, you know, maybe 10-15 degrees, but here I've had to point them down a little further than I want to. Point my brake lever down more than I want to. Not a big deal, not too big of an issue, because in a few days I'm gonna have the new D-Flex Pros on there, and that'll solve all the problems. One thing I did to give myself a little clearance here was made a little spacer out of a Delrin washer, and that pushed this out a little bit more and gave me a little bit more room to rotate my master cylinder up. I've replaced both the brake and clutch lever because, you know, I've ridden it 1,000 miles, I've goofed around, I've dropped it, I broke some levers, I didn't get the matching ones. I just got what I could get to order fastest. So these are both the Tusk front and rear clutch and brake levers. They work great. These are ODI grips. This is, I believe, I can't remember the name of this grip pattern. I really like this grip pattern on my mountain bikes because it's really cushy right here. And that just helps me with some hand numbness on a mountain bike. But on here, I don't put as much pressure on my palms. I'm not going, you know, downhill or anything like that, like out of Spider Mountain. And I've tried also the same version of these with the half waffle. And I like the half waffle better just because, you know, you've got that grip on the front, it's smoother on the back, and that gives you kind of an index point, not only here, but on your throttle. So you just kind of have more of a tactile indicator of, you know, where your hands are. And I like that half waffle a lot. I'm probably gonna put some of those back on here. And on the cams, these come with interchangeable cams, and I've seen some people have problems with the cams dragging or whatever. They're lettered, and the cam that works on this particular throttle setup is the A cam. You want to use the A cam. Tusk Olympus large tank bag. This thing is probably made for a much larger motorcycle, but I like it on here because I think it just kind of increases the presence of the bike, makes it, you know, seem bigger and more visible. And so I really like that. It gives me a lot of room for, you know, gloves. Shoot, I could put an 11-inch tablet in here. Got to even back up to get it in frame. Gloves, wallet, keys, multi-tool. Comes with this little shower net for it. You know, some duct tape, multi-tool. Just some basic necessities for getting out in the day. No big deal. Moving down, of course, like I said, I dropped it, so bent the original brake lever or clutch shifter. So there's the Tusk shifter lever. Again, I didn't mean for this to turn into the Tusk bike, but their stuff is just so reasonably priced and the quality's good. And there's just not a bunch of issues with it, as long as you pick your parts right, like I've seen with some other stuff. And I don't want to spend more money for something that's, you know, further up market and then have it not work. Like this, I feel like, okay, for the price, I can use it. If it gets busted, you know, it's a consumable. And the other stuff, you know, you move up to the Clem or the Giant Loop and you feel like, man, that's an investment and it's gonna wear out probably not much slower than this. You know, I'd rather spend less money and get good quality. Not hating on the Giant Loop stuff. I just couldn't see myself spending as much money for that. I've also got on the way the Tusk saddlebags for here, and when I get those in, I've also got a dry duffel that I'll replace this case with. This case is just for goofing around, going around town. I can put a lock on it if I want to put something in there, but for, you know, going out and adventure riding or camping, you know, the hard case is kind of limiting. I want something that it's expandable, is round, that I can stuff all my stuff in, cinch it down, and that'll be good. So can't remember the name of the Tusk saddlebags that I'm getting. I'll update that maybe later. And again, another Tusk accessory, the Tusk fender delete. Got the fender that, you know, usually hangs right way down here, up and out of the way, just looks cleaner and more tidy. So another thing that I got here is the Precision Motorcycle Racks tail rack. It's a really good solid rack. I've heard people complain about them coming with nylon or Delrin spacers off the back fender. This did not come with those. This came with aluminum, and it works great. And then, of course, what Kawasaki is complete without the obligatory Apache Harbor Freight case modification. I got the 30, I think this is a 30 liter, and I like it a lot. I've seen people talk about, you know, how you mount them, and all sorts of different ways to, you know, transfer the pattern and center this thing. What I did, I just got a piece of cardstock and one of my kids' crayons, and I did a rub. I had the case off, and I did a rub of the crayon on top of the cardstock while the cardstock was sitting on top of my rack. I cut my pattern out. I centered it on the bottom of my case where I wanted it to mount. I marked the, you know, holes with a nail or a center punch or whatever you want to use, and then drilled through the case and used rubber washers on the inside and the outside to mount it up. And, you know, I've pressure washed it. There's no leaks. This thing is watertight. That's a really solid mounted case, but it's just for fun around town, and I had to do it because, you know, it's a Kawasaki, and you've seen KLRs and everybody's adventure bikes with their, you know, $30, $40 case mods. I thought, well, I got to do that at some point too. So yeah, I'm really liking this bike. For me, you know, I don't like doing a bunch of highway stuff. I like getting out in the country and kind of tooling around, just putting around backcountry roads, doing some gravel roads. And then the plan is later on in the future to do some BDRs, maybe do the Trans-American Trail, do the the Continental Divide Trail, and you know, put a lot of miles on this bike, really get to know it. And so the reason, you know, going with the 300 over like a 650 or a Suzuki at 400, you know, over the Suzuki, this has got fuel injection, so I'm not gonna, altitude changes, all that kind of stuff, I'm not gonna have to worry about a carb. You know, it's a 300, so it's lighter, easier to maneuver. So if I want to drop the bags, and do some single track or do some, you know, side quests off of the BDR, I can do that, whereas a 650 would kind of limit you on that. The only thing that this bike really lacks that I feel like I need is a larger capacity tank. This has got a 2-gallon tank. You know, I've been getting between 60 and 70 miles to a gallon. I don't ride it, you know, hard, I don't thrash it, but that limits your range. And so that's another reason I'm going with some of the Tusk saddlebags, because they have molly loops on the underside, and I'll update later with those. But you can put a 30-ounce fuel bottle on the bottom, so put one of those on each side. That'll help me carry some extra fuel. But still, it would be great if somebody came out with a 3.5 plus gallon tank for this motorcycle, like they do for the Honda CRF, like they did for the old KLX, like they do for a lot of the other motorcycles. I know MSI makes a 2.7 gallon, and that's good, but you know, I'd really like something that replaces these shrouds with, you know, something you can carry some gas in. Of course, you have to keep your ventilation, but you know, some kind of tank with the wraparound shrouds that hold some extra fuel. That would be really great for doing those longer distance rides, and I'd buy one in a heartbeat, probably regardless of the price. Some things I did on this, you know, I'm a little bit heavier rider. I'm putting heavier equipment on here, so I did have to adjust the rebound on here, and I'm glad that this does have adjustable rebound on the front. I'm sorry, adjustable compression. I did have to adjust the compression on the front. I'm glad it does have adjustable compression, because before that, you know, it felt like it was wallowing all over in a turn. It felt like it was nosediving at stops. So I took some of the compression dampening. I added some compression dampening, and now it's great. It's great to ride. And same thing in the rear. I adjusted the compression and the rebound in the rear, just to account for the fact that I'm, you know, a little larger rider, and I'm going to be carrying more weight on here, and I also increased the preload. So I'm really glad the Kawasaki came with the adjustable suspension, and I feel like that's where Kawasaki really dialed this bike in. Is you don't get a lot of the technology, you don't have anti-lock brakes, you don't have a gear select indicator, and those things cost money. I feel like Kawasaki put the money into the suspension instead, and this bike rides great. You can really tell because of it. I just didn't want to, even if it cost me more in the long run, I guess, to get the other stuff that I want on this bike, I didn't want to get a bike and then immediately have to spend a whole lot of money on suspension. I just wanted to be able to adjust it, set it, and go, and then later on, you know, add stuff that, you know, I can ride the bike between now and then. I don't have to have you know, a 3.5 gallon tank to ride the bike, but I definitely would have to have stiffer suspension than the way this came set stock. If I was to get another bike that didn't have adjustable suspension, I'd immediately have had to really, I think, done something about the suspension. So yeah, after 1,000 miles, I really like the bike. It does everything I want it to do. 6-speed transmission, good low down torque, good speed. If I want to hit the highway, I can. It'll cruise at 70. It starts getting buzzy at 71. Tops out, well, I'm going to tell you where it tops out. Tops out flat, right at about 84, which is faster than you need to be going on a bike like this. And it's really ridiculous that, you know, you can have a dirt bike, dual sport bike, that'll actually go 84 miles an hour. I wouldn't want to go any faster than that. If I'm going faster than that, I need another kind of bike. But for, you know, but this isn't for the tollway, this isn't for the interstate. For doing state highways, for doing back roads, county roads, this has all the speed and power that I need. It's my first bike. I haven't ridden motorcycles in a long time. I don't have a lot of experience, so this is a great first beginner bike. And it keeps me, it's probably a good thing that keeps me off the interstate. And at the speeds at the speeds it'll go, you know, it's not so much power that'll get me in trouble. It's not so much speed that's going to get me in trouble. It's not a sport bike. It encourages me to, you know, slow down and just enjoy the scenery and take my corners slow, keep my speeds down, and just smell the roses, enjoy riding a motorcycle, because I'm not doing this for work. I'm not doing this to commute. I'm doing this for fun and just riding around, enjoying the outdoors and having fun. That's what this bike is all about. It's about time to go and get some lunch, but I was riding back to town and thought of a couple more things. One other issue I had with this bike, and it was kind of a combination of the way it's set up from the factory and those big heavy clamps that these Tusk Hand-guards come with. You know, they clamp onto here, and they stick out here, and that leaves you with a problem routing this brake cable, or this brake tube, because if you mount it with on top of that clamp, then it's way too much tension on this hose. And then if you mount it under that clamp, well, when this hard tube rebounds to try and soak up some of that suspension to let this flex, then it jams into the bottom of that clamp. Now you'll notice if you look at the Honda CRF, you know, their brake tube, you look at the videos of them, they come out way up on top. They're nearly blocking the dashboard. A lot of times they are blocking the dashboard. That's both a bad and a good thing, because with that longer brake line, you don't have to worry so much about it putting tension right here if you put a handlebar clamp on there. And so that was one kind of negative of this bike, is that routing issue that I had, just because this comes with a shorter brake line, a little bit longer, maybe just an inch and a half longer brake line stock, I think would be preferable, because most people are going to put some sort of handguards on there. And you know, I got a handguard and a windshield mounted, and I had to figure out that routing issue. And the solution for me was to go with cyber handguard clamp mounts. Yeah, it's a beautiful day out here riding. You know, another thing I like about this motorcycle is basically the Jeep of motorcycles. Everything's easy to get to, easy to work on. It's not so heavy. Like if I want to go traveling, I can just load this thing up in the bed of my truck and go. You know, I don't have to ride it the whole way. It's not a big cruiser. I don't have to trailer it. It's relatively easy just to load up and go. So that makes it very convenient. And I did my first service. I did my first oil change on it. You know, a single cylinder engine like this is dead simple. I mean, I think it took me 15-20 minutes to do an oil change, and most of that was just because I was trying to make sure I got every little bit of the first oil out before I replaced it. But really just dead simple maintenance. That's another thing. Like, yeah, I could get a street bike, and I probably will get something eventually more street oriented or road oriented. But this is perfect for me to learn basic maintenance on, and you know, just to have fun on and not have to worry about just, you know, maintenance cost running up. Fuel cost on this is amazing because it gets, you know, 60 plus 70 miles to a gallon sometimes. Whereas with a larger displacement, more powerful, heavier bike, you know, you're not going to get that. So, you know, for a beginner bike, or for somebody just who wants a low maintenance bike that they're not planning on, you know, taking on the road all the time, just kind of putting around. I mean, I could look cooler on a Triumph Bonneville or a Bobber 1200 or something like that. I could look a lot cooler, but you know, it would cost me a lot more in every way. And you know, I can just get out and do this, and it's no worry. Just put it back in the shop, and we're done. Hop on the next day and go. Easy peasy. So for a 35-year-old guy still, even just getting his first motorcycle, hadn't ridden a motorcycle since college, this has been a really good choice for me.